I'm making this video blog a quick one on abortion. Is abortion right or wrong? And I'd like to hear your guys' opinions. To share with you what spiked my interest in making a video blog on this was an article that I came across where the Abortion Federation spokesperson, Catherine Colbert, she says some very revealing things that just blew my mind. I couldn't believe what I was reading. In the article, she urges members to avoid the facts and instead sidetrack the conversation to emotional stories. Here's part of the article right here. She says, quote, "I urge incredible restraint here to focus your message and stick to it, because otherwise we'll get creamed. If the debate is whether the fetus feels pain, we'll lose. If the debate in the public arena is what's the effects of anesthesia, we'll lose. If the debate is whether or not women ought to be entitled to late abortion, we'll probably lose. But if the debate is on the circumstances of individual women, then I think we can win these fights." This is so revealing that she actually appeals to emotional stories, debate on that level, and get away from the facts. No, how about we talk about the facts? Alright? The big question is this: what is the unborn? If the unborn is a human being, then we shouldn't be killing it. If the unborn is not a human being, well then removing it from one's body requires no more justification than removing a tooth. Okay? That's as far as I'm concerned. So, if the unborn is not a human being, it requires no justification whatsoever. But if it is a human being, well then it's murder. And my big question is this: when does hardship justify homicide? How about we talk about the facts? The facts.
There is no essential difference between the embryo you once were and the adult you are today that would justify killing you at that earlier stage of development. Are there differences between embryos and adults? Of course. That's not the question, though. The question is, are those differences morally significant such that we can say it would have been okay to kill you then, but not now? And as Stephen Schwartz points out, there's only 4 differences between that embryo you once were and the adult that's here today. And not one of those 4 differences matters such that we can say killing you then was fine, but not now. Schwartz says there's a difference of size, there's a difference of level of development, there's a difference of environment, meaning where you're located, and a difference of degree of dependency. Think of the acronym SLED, and you'll remember these 4 differences. SLED. Size, level of development, environment, degree of dependency. But here's how we use that SLED acronym. We use it to show that the differences between the embryo and the adult are not sufficient to justify killing the embryo. Size. There's your S in the SLED acronym. You were smaller as an embryo, but since when does body size as a matter of principle justify killing you? Men are generally larger than women. We don't think men have more basic rights than women do. What about your level of development? You were less developed as an embryo than you are now, but we don't think that 2-year-old girls who are less developed than 18-year-old young women have less of a right to life simply because the 2-year-old, for example, does not have a functioning reproductive system yet. Does it follow we can kill the 2-year-old, or that the 2-year-old has less of a right to life than the 18-year-old simply because she's less developed? I often remark to high school audiences when I talk to them. I say to the high school kids, you are less developed than your parents. You are less developed than your parents physically, and you're less developed than your parents intellectually, which comes as a complete shock to all of them. But the truth is, you don't reach your intellectual peak until your mid-40s. Does it follow then that the parents have a greater right to life than the kids? Absolutely not. I know. Size, level of development. What about environment, where you're located? You were once in the womb, now you're out. But how does where you are determine what you are? Senator Orrin Hatch, in defending embryonic stem cell research, said, anything conceived in a petri dish is not a human being. Excuse me, Senator Hatch, how does where you are determine what you are? When you roll over in bed at night, you change location, but you don't stop being you. When you walk from the parking lot into this classroom, you change location. You didn't stop being you. If that's true, How does a journey of 8 inches down the birth canal suddenly transform you from non-human, non-valuable entity that we can kill to valuable human one that we can't? The answer is it can't. If you weren't already human and valuable, you're not getting there by changing your address. And finally, degree of dependency. You once depended on your mother for survival, but as a matter of principle, how does depending on another human being mean you have no right to life and we can kill you? Conjoined twins depend on each other's organs for survival, don't they? Does it follow we can kill the twins because they can't live independent of each other? Size, level of development, environment, degree of dependency. Think sled. Those are the only 4 differences between that embryo you once were and the adult you are today, and not one of those 4 differences justifies killing you at that earlier stage of development. That's our pro-life case. Scientifically, we are distinct, living, whole human beings from the very beginning. Philosophically, there's no relevant difference between the embryos we were and the adults we are today that justifies killing us at that earlier stage.
When I really realized that I was on the fence, I dove into the medical books, I dove into the scientific research. What I learned is at the moment of conception, a new life comes into being. The DNA, the genetic blueprint is there, the sex is determined, the blood type is determined, the unique set of fingerprints is there. And I picked up the phone, I called Planned Parenthood, help me out here, give me your best arguments. And the best arguments were, well, if you get it, it's just a clump of cells. If you get it early enough, it doesn't even look like a baby. We're clumps of cells. And that unborn human being does not look like a baby the same way a baby does not look like a teenager. A teenager does not look like a senior. But that unborn human being looks exactly the way human beings are supposed to look at that stage of development. And this human life continues to grow and change. Some people say, well, if you get it at a certain stage, it's okay. According to the law of biogenesis, all life comes from pre-existing life. I really believe if the unborn is not a human being, have as many abortions as you want, whenever you want, no justification is necessary. If, on the other hand, the unborn is a human being, no justification is adequate unless another human life is at risk, that being the mother's. But in that case, you're not acting to kill, you're acting to save a life. And I also believe that when an abortion takes place, there are at least 2 victims. We cannot be condemning women. Women have been so hurt by this, and they're not given all the facts. And especially as Christians, we need to be so careful that we are not condemning her. So it's an issue we need to deal with love, but I believe we got to get politics out of it. We need to put this in the hands of science. Even if you don't share our faith, an atheist can know that it's wrong to take an innocent human